Hey everybody! So what I want to share with you today is that most people don't know that there's 3 stages of relationship and that 90% of couples don't make it out of that stage too. So what I'm going to share with you today is what works for the 10% of couples that actually make it through and grow through it and come closer together because of it. Now here's the thing, we all, in every single relationship, have to go through stage 2. It's an important part of our evolution and our growth in relationship, and it can be treacherous. And that is why 90% of couples don't make it through. If you want to know how to create your happy ever after, you want to continue to watch this video because I'm going to show you what happens in stage 2, how to navigate these uncharted waters, and how to come out the other side. You'll walk away knowing what the 10% of couples did to transform their relationships and create their happy ever after.
Wow.
There are 3 stages of relationship, like I mentioned. First is the falling in love stage, or the honeymoon phase. This is when we start to fall in love. We feel a little out of control. Life is just feeling so great and our partner is perfect. Stage 2 is the perfect storm. That's where some of our childhood wounds start to come up. That is where we start to become more triggered and our partner doesn't look as perfect, and maybe we even start to question whether this person is right for us. And stage 3 is the rising in love. It is where we start to have better ways and dynamics of being with each other. We grow more in love. As I said, we rise in love. We learn to heal our wounds and trauma, and in doing so, come closer together. So I'm going to briefly touch upon stage 1. Now, stage 1, again, is that honeymoon phase, or what I like to call the falling in love stage. It's where all of the hormones and the neurochemicals are flying through your system. You feel like you're on a high. You want to run to the rooftop and scream out how in love you are. We've all been there. And what I want to share with you about stage 1, we often think of it as the holy grail of where we want our relationship to return back to when the going gets tough. So during stage 1, it's completely normal and very, very common for us to show the polished and refined sides of ourselves, right? Because we're seeking that person's approval and acceptance and love, and we want them paying attention to us. It's not that we're showing up fake or inauthentic or untruthful. We're just showing the polished, refined parts of ourselves as we get to know this person. But like all honeymoons, they come to an end, and it's not to say that you're any less in love with each other or that you're not romantic anymore, but that there's actually a transformation happening in the relationship. And being able to recognize when that transformation is starting and how to move through it is what's so important, what I'm going to show you in this video. And what we want to remember is that we want to honor stage 1 and all the excitement and joy and rose-colored glassness that it has, but we also want to know that there's also an even greater and deeper love that you are expanding into. And sometimes that gets a little messy before we get to the other side. So now let's dive deeply into stage 2, because this is where 90% of couples fail and they end up ending the relationship too prematurely. I call it the perfect storm cycle because it's where you get stuck in your relationship, you continuously keep triggering each other, acting out old coping behaviors, and you get stuck in this cycle and you don't know how to navigate your way out of the cycle. So it becomes a chronic cycle of triggering each other back and forth, and often that is when people decide to end the relationship. So I'm going to help you understand why people never make it out of stage 2, what you can do about it, and how to successfully move through it. So if you're still watching, you are either entering stage 2 or you're in the thick of stage 2. Nobody can escape this stage. It's a natural evolution of every single relationship, including our friendships. So you might be wondering, Danielle, how do I really know though whether I've entered stage 2 or not? Well, here's a good indicator. It's when you've started to make a commitment in your relationship. You've been together 6+ months, you maybe are ready to get married, or you're engaged, or you're moving in together, and you're now starting this long-term commitment. So stage 2 is where things get very hairy, real, raw, and even brutally honest. You may even start to question, is this the person that I fell in love with? Do I even want to continue with this person? So stage 2 is also the place where we start to really trigger each other quite a bit and frequently. It's where all of our childhood wounds and traumas start to bubble to the surface and we can no longer suppress them. So unless you're aware of stage 2 and how to navigate it, it will eventually destroy your relationship. It will tear you down. It is a downward spiral that we get caught up in. It's a cycle that we feel we can't escape, and the only way we feel we can escape it is by ending the relationship. So how does the perfect storm play out? Let me take you to my office and I will share the love story of Susie and Sam.
Okay, so we can see here we have Susie and Sam, and they met and they fell in love and they were all ready to get married. They were on the right track. And then something happens with Susie and Sam. Now, when I'm saying everything was happy, they were getting married, usually we start to enter stage 2 when we've made a big commitment. We're ready to move in together. We're ready to get married. We're ready to take the relationship deeper, okay, and make a big commitment. So Susie and Sam entered the relationship. They were in the honeymoon phase. They were feeling good. You know, they thought they were the perfect partners for each other, and they were and still are. However, things start getting rocky and the sailing is not smooth anymore. And what they start to do is they start to get triggered. And this is the perfect storm because Susie is starting to feel unheard and unseen and maybe even unappreciated and undervalued. Any one of those. And then she starts to act out behaviors because of this. We all have these coping behaviors. So she starts to maybe criticize Sam or starts to have a sharp tongue with Sam in order to try to reconnect with him, to get his love. We're always wanting to get that other person's love, and we behave out of these old coping mechanisms that really don't end up getting us what we want. So maybe she gets defensive and then she starts to be cynical, and then this triggers Sam. So you can see how this is a loop. She gets triggered, she behaves a certain way, that triggers Sam. So all of a sudden Sam is now feeling alone. He's maybe criticized. He's maybe feeling disrespected or dismissed. And he starts acting out behaviors. He starts to withdraw or stonewalling. He might mock her, the way she's behaving. He might start calling her names. And all of these start to erode at the relationship. And then he may roll his eyes at her, and then she gets triggered again, feeling unseen, unheard, unappreciated, and then she acts out this behaviors again, criticizing, defending, a sharp tongue, and then he gets triggered again. He feels alone, criticized, disrespected, and dismissed, and then he withdraws, right? Those are his coping mechanisms. He mocks her, name calls her, he rolls his eyes, and so we get in this loop back and forth, and this is where we are going down a very dangerous downward spiral, and to escape this is very, very challenging without knowing how to navigate it and not know how to actually course correct your ship and get your ship smooth sailing again.
As we saw with Susie and Sam, their triggers and behaviors were all trying to get needs met. And it comes down to 2 questions. Do I matter, and do you love me? Now, they were expressing their emotions very loudly in order to try to reconnect and get that love. However, when they do it that way, they stay in the perfect storm cycle, and it continues to get worse and worse and more intense over time. Very, very few relationships make it past the perfect storm because they don't know how to get out of the cycle. This is because our childhood wounds are so deeply woven into the fabric of who we are that we get hijacked by these triggers. And then often we don't even know where we got derailed unless we know how to catch our triggers, we know how to grow through that and get out of it. The perfect storm cycle becomes impossible to escape, and it becomes very emotionally draining and exhausting. And in fact, it can dramatically weaken your immune system and cause you to become physically ill if you stay in it too long without help or support. Are you still with me? Do you want to know how to get out and stay out of stage 2 and move through it successfully with less pain, less suffering, and less hardship? That is when we start to step into stage 3, which is rising in love. This is the North Star that every single relationship is actually shooting towards. But most of us get lost at sea in the perfect storm, and we don't have direction and the navigational tools to move through it. Now I'm going to show you how to get out and stay out. There were 3 key shifts that the 10% of couples that actually successfully sailed through stage 2 and into stage 3 did. So shift number 1, they started to heal their childhood wounds and traumas so that they could become less reactive and more responsive in their relationships. They started to be able to understand where their triggers were coming from and also be sensitive to each other's triggers so that their triggers weren't owning them and they weren't losing their power to their triggers. And in fact, they were starting to integrate many parts of themselves, which therefore made them less reactive and more responsive. Now, we sometimes have to look to our past for information for our future. Now, that doesn't mean that we want to stay in our past, but we do want to start to look at our past and start to heal some of the parts of ourselves. Shift number 2, fighting fairly. They showed up differently to their relationship by transforming old, habitual, unhealthy ways of being with each other that actually pushed them apart, and instead they adopted more healthy and more loving and more understanding dynamics that brought them together during conflict. They embraced better communication skills. They started leading from trying to understand versus trying to be understood. They also learned self-calming techniques in moments of conflict so that they could stay present and not withdraw or shut down. And in doing so, they were able to foster more collaborative and better win-win solutions to their problems. They were also able to hold steady in their truths without feeling like they needed to collapse their own individual desires so that they could actually speak their truth freely without the need to change or to take on the partner's truth as his or her own. And the best part is they started to appreciate and respect each other's differences and opinions, even if they didn't agree. And of course, you will still have moments of conflict. That is very healthy and normal. The difference will be the way that you show up and work through it. It will move you closer together and not push you further apart. All in all, you'll catch your triggers faster. You'll be able to take responsibility for your part in the conflict, and you will start showing up as a team, which leads me to shift number 3, teamwork. The 10% teamed up against the problem and not each other. And now that they were on the same team fighting for each other and not against each other, they were able to powerfully align to fight the problem and come up with win-win solutions. They didn't see each other as the problem anymore. These couples were able to come together as a team and make their way out of the perfect storm. These couples also were able to rise into a deeper, more connected love because they gained the tools, the knowledge, and the confidence and the knowingness that they could work through anything as a team together. They also became super strong and solid as a relationship and knew that they could withstand the test of time and any and all of their differences. So that's what's possible for your relationship. So imagine you being in your relationship and you're feeling heard, you're feeling seen, you're feeling understood, you're feeling respected. You have each other's backs. So stage 3, rising in love, is all about leading your relationship from acceptance, compassion, understanding, and appreciation. It's not about using fear or hiding or manipulating or reactivity or getting something at the expense of your partner. So what would it mean to you to find out where you and your partner are stuck and have a map and a compass to help you navigate these uncharted waters of stage 2? And what if you knew how to safely and successfully move through stage 2 without resorting to your only option, which would be to end the relationship? Okay, so how do we get you to your happily ever after? Well, I break it down into 3 phases. They are I lead, we lead, and you lead. So phase 1, I lead. I jump in your ship, I help you to captain your ship and move your ship away from danger. You're moving away from the rocks. The main thing here is that we need to protect and create safety in your relationship. So phase 2 is we lead. Once we move into calmer waters, I start to mentor you on how to use the navigational tools, how to use the compass, how to use the map, so that you can continue on this charted course. You can think of yourself as an apprentice captain or a captain in training. And phase 3, it's all you. You have graduated to becoming the captain of your ship. This is where I start to move into the background and watch you lead your ship. You have the confidence, you have the proficiency, you have the skills to really navigate your own ship. So that's how we get you to your happily ever after. So, okay, what do I do now, Danielle? And if you'd like to join the 10% of couples that victoriously make their way through stage 2 and into stage 3, then I'd really sincerely like to invite you to a free Zoom call with me where we can have a real conversation. We can look at where you're stuck, and then we can start to navigate your way through and give your relationship the fighting chance to rise in love. There are 2 types of couples that I work with: those that are entering stage 2 and those that are deep in stage 2. The couples that are just entering stage 2 are experiencing choppy waters. They may be taking on a little bit of water on the boat. They are hitting up against waves. They are temporarily patching the boat in the moment, but the patches don't hold. They're not sustainable. And what ends up happening is water starts to leak in. So their temporary fixes aren't working. The second type of couples that I work with are those that have been in the storm for a while. They're way off course. They're smashing up against the rocks. Their boat is taking on a lot of water and it's about to sink. And they often feel that the only solution is to abandon ship. Here's the thing, I help both couples get the support they need to make their way out of the perfect storm. It doesn't matter whether you've been together 3 months, 6 months, or 10 plus years. So many of my couples that have been in the thick of the storm continuously tell me that they wish that they had had the tools sooner. They wish that they addressed their relationship issues sooner because it would have saved them so much avoidable hardship, unnecessary suffering, and time and energy. If this resonates with you, please don't hesitate to reach out because you don't want to make the mistakes that 90% of couples do just because they didn't see a way out. You can join the 10% of couples that victoriously make their way through these uncharted waters. Your relationship really deserves a fighting chance.